Hey everybody, Andy from Tennis Euphoria, bringing you my review of the Tecnifibre TFight 305S. I will review some of the other TFights, so if you're interested in my thoughts on those, please do subscribe to the channel and turn on that notification bell so that you know when they're out. This review will focus on the 305 gram 18 by 19 version of the TFight. Now I'm a little bit late to the party in reviewing this. It obviously has been out a little while now, and there's plenty of content out there about this frame, but I have the benefit now of having some time with it. All of my reviews are totally unbiased and unsponsored. My motivation is to understand what frames can offer someone so that I can match people to the right category when they go through my services, which is offering people the ability to actually demo extensively, and also if they're so inclined, to go through a process that does actually match people to the right category and frame for them. My is on spec, pretty much 305.7 grams unstrung. Depending on the strings being used, it was coming in at about 323 grams strung, and mine was a little bit under spec in swing weight at 315. I'll obviously try and share my views on the racket and also keep in mind what some customers have said as they've demoed it or been through the matching process when they've been matched to a category that includes this TFight. I wanted to start by talking about the TFight range and some of its characteristics a little, because I think there's some quite interesting learnings that I've discovered with people when hitting these. So they're quite unique in as much as the RS design of their construction sort of combines a box beam with an elliptical shape. And then when you think about this one being a constant beam at 22.5 millimeters, that's obviously bringing a little bit of power, but ultimately a constant and box beam is something that's very well suited to players who drive through the ball and enjoy control orientated rackets. The other thing about the TFight that I've always found to be quite interesting is that the RS section does make them quite solid and maneuverable. And because of the size of the beams, they are a little bit more powerful than a total all-out control frame. So in some respects, they are really a good in-between frame, but they can compete with lots of different categories. I mean, this does compete, if you think about those characteristics, with the E-Zone 98, for example, but it can also be found in categories that we match people to, which are control-orientated categories, and it can also compete with one of its own family members, the Tecnifibre TF40. So there's lots of opportunity for people to be matched to a TFight. But in this 305, Tecnifibre have spent a bit of time in thinking about how they should update it. If you're familiar with the previous editions, they were very, very heavy on swing weight. Mine that we had for demo matching here was 338 swing weight, and we'd find that people would love it, and often they wouldn't perform too well in some sort of on-court assessments because it ultimately was a lot to swing. What it was, however, was very, very stable, quite powerful, and in the right hands it could be super impressive if someone was really able to swing that swing weight and drive through the ball and play attacking all-court tennis. Now, Tecnifibre have obviously observed that the game is speeding up, and even at the professional level, swing weights are going down, racket head speed is increasing, and everybody in the manufacturing space is looking to combine maneuverability with stability. And Tecnifibre have been quite clever in that respect. They have increased the stiffness to 66. They've widened the beam, not thickened it, so we still have that 22.5 constant beam, and that has enabled them to shift the balance point by a centimetre, making it more headlight, and ultimately making it much, much more manoeuvrable. And of course, that new manoeuvrability makes this much more accessible to players who are still advanced, but players who don't necessarily have to be super advanced and super fit and strong to swing the swing weight effectively. And I think the really clever bit is the power and stability is mostly still there. I do think there is a slight difference when you're looking at total put away power. The previous used to be an absolute sledgehammer in the right hands, And I think that if you put this in people who are playing with that previous frame effectively's hands, then they will notice a slight difference in put away power. But for the vast majority will really enjoy the new maneuverability, and they will still view this as a very stable frame, offering quite good power alongside control, and more people will be able to use it and enjoy it. So that's ultimately a really good thing. Now you might be wondering about comfort and feel because that stiffness has been increased, and it's well known obviously that Tecnifibre frames are filled with foam. Well, I think that Tecnifibre knew that the foam filling is an effective dampener, and the stiffness increasing to 66 wasn't a big risk, and certainly totally concur with that. Haven't had anybody who's hit with the frame report any tenderness in tendons, muscles, or joints, and when I was hitting with it, haven't found it to be uncomfortable at all. So comfort remains. Power level perhaps down just a touch, but it's not going to be noticeable for many. In terms of the feel of this TFight, then it's quite difficult to describe actually, because you do get quite a direct response. I mean, that stiffness does deliver quite a direct response. I think people who've hit with pro staffs and are looking for a bigger sweet spot and a bit more maneuverability from the RF or the previous 315 pro staff will really enjoy this frame, because you do get some direct feedback on the ball, but you feel really connected, but there's enough dampening from that foam to make it comfortable. So it certainly isn't mushy, but it again isn't uncomfortable, and you get a nice combination, I think, mid-range, a bit like the racket doing everything well. It just sort of covers all the bases of offering you enough feedback, nice response, good direct response, and some comfort. That's probably the best way I can describe the feel on this TFight. Control is exceptional. One thing to note on the string pattern, the 18x19 string pattern does offer you access to spin. It's quite well spaced in the center, and so if you're hitting with spin, you can still generate spin. If you brush up, the frame will deliver you spin, and it is dense enough to offer some nice control. So I think that blend is just about right. However, I did find that it was important to string appropriately. I ended up going with 1.24, 1.23 gauge strings, and at about a 50 to 52 pound tension to really open up the sweet spot a bit and bring the frame to life. And I did find that if I was stringing tight or if I was stringing with dead polys, that something was just missing a little from the frame. So getting the strings right are important. So I can't really find too many issues with this frame. It's rock solid, stable. It's now very maneuverable. It offers good control, good levels of power. Certainly will compete very well with control-orientated frames and frames that are offering control and power, like the E-Zone 98, for example. I think the only potential downsides are little niggles. The grip shape will annoy some, and I do think you've got to get the stringing right. I think you could demo this frame with a dead poly and just not appreciate it for what it can offer. So I think shape polys, or as I say, polys that are offering some power strung quite low, is quite important on this frame. So excellent. If you want to book onto the demo services, then look us up, and maybe you can hit with it. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.